and welcome to another edition of Agenda 2063, the first one for 2022. Happy to be here once again in the new year, where we're giving you very important updates on developments around the African Union Agenda 2063 in particular. My name is Bensah Jr., your regular host for this show. Agenda 2063 is probably the only show in Ghana, the region, continent, telling you important and authentic stories about Africa's integration in a way that is barely told on TV and online. So happy to always be the one to be helping you understand what's going on the continent, the different areas, regional, continental. And we'll be having a very important guest to help unpack another very important issue today. But before we do that, though, we're going to have two segments as we typically do. We'll take a break and we'll be right back. So welcome back from the break, and we're going to start off with APRM Watch today. The APRM, as you probably will recall from the past couple of editions, it continues to be an important part of this conversation on Agenda 2063. In December, APRM had its maiden edition of a meeting with the AAU's Peace and Security Council in Durban. It was a 3-day meeting that sought to help unpack developments around the AAU, especially around peace and security. APRM is known as the AAU's monitoring agency around good governance. But what the Durban meeting in December sought to do was to say, look, APRM also has the mandate on early warning systems, as well as looking at peace and security. So to what extent can it work a bit more, let's say, a bit more closely with the AAU Peace and Security Council in a way that they complement each other in the work that they do? So I'll be speaking to someone about this conference, hopefully next week, to help unpack it a bit more closely. But today in the segment, what we want to do really is to give you an update of what APRM is doing and also some of the things that have come up. We know what some of the challenges in Mali, Burkina Faso, and so on, and we're happy to hear that the APRM, consistent with the signature of the ECAS, the Economic Community of Central African States, a couple of months ago with the APRM to help look at its the good governance in the region. APRM will also be doing something similar with ECOWAS and also Southern Africa as well, where APRM will sign an MOU with ECOWAS to help monitor the good governance aspects of the region, whilst also encouraging member states within that region that have not yet signed to also ratify. So these are some of the developments we understand that are coming in from the APRM liaison in Addis. There's a lot of exciting things coming up around the APRM. One of the key things, which is underway in fact, is the APRM forum underway in Addis, where they will begin to have conversations on what is the way forward for the APRM now that they've developed this relationship with the Peace and Security Council, an early one, and what do they need to do? Aspects of good governance this year. The year has started with a lot of news about West Africa and coups. How will APRM respond to this, especially that APRM has a review to do in Mali this year as well? What are some of the things that we'll need to quickly do to make sure that the conversation is meaningful once they have the APRM forum? And the APRM forum is also an opportunity to keep up to date with member states that have not yet acceded to the APRM. We know that last week, for example, Burundi just also acceded to the APRM, becoming the 42nd country to accede to the APRM. So now there are about 30 more countries that need to accede to the APRM consistent with hashtag towards universal accession 2023. The APRM turns 20 next year, 2023. And so it's an important time and an important period for the APRM this year to really take stock of what it needs to do to make sure that the good governance tag that it has built over the years is consistent and begins to include conversations around peace and security, especially at a very, very critical time in West Africa, that those conversations need to be really, really unpacked for everyone to understand how the AAU can be more central in the discussion on coups and that kind of thing. So that is what I have to say for now on APRM Watch. We're going to take a quick break, then we'll be right back with updates on East Africa. We'll be right back. All right, so welcome back from the break, and we're going to give you some very important updates on East Africa. For those who are just tuning in for the first time, East Africa is a special case for the program. We've been monitoring it for a while now, specifically because there's a lot of very important developments always happening in that region. East Africa is very interested in watching what is happening in West Africa. For example, I'm wondering, so West Africa, why are so many coups happening in West Africa? East Africa, there are no coups. It doesn't mean that there's no dissension or there's no problem. We know, for example, that Kenya is going to be having elections in this year, around August or so. And we know that this very same APRM that I talked about was one of the agencies that predicted the violence in Kenya because as a result of signals that it saw from its reporting and its monitoring. So it signaled the violence in Kenya in 2008. So clearly we know that, and the new constitution that Kenya has is largely because the Kenyan state decided to adopt some of the recommendations, or most of the recommendations that APRM came up with as a result of the violence in Kenya. So there's a lot of conversations that happen in the background that sometimes we do not know. There's a lot more conversation going on between AAU itself as an institution and member states on conflict, peace and security all the time. And we may see ECOWAS as a central actor in West Africa, less so EAC in East Africa, but there's always still conversations going on. But for us on the show, the reason why we like East Africa a lot is because there are always very interesting things happening in the different regions, different countries that make up East Africa. They like their history a lot, and so apart from the one tweet, for example, that I've just seen, which is asking no coups in East Africa, I don't know what the person was trying to imply, whether they think that they need some coups. We in West Africa will be happy to teach them how to make a coup. Well, if that is not the case, well, let me show you give you some updates on some very interesting tweets that have been coming in on East Africa, on the hashtag East Africa. There's one that just came in not too long ago about Kigali being the first city in East Africa to launch free wireless internet across the country. We are still waiting to get free wireless that actually works in some of parts of the capital here in Accra. We hope that they'll be able to help teach us some lessons. Then there's some interesting pictures about what is supposed to be one of the tallest buildings in East Africa, which will open very soon in Ethiopia. Supposed to be an Ethiopian commercial bank or something. It's towering above from the pictures indicate that it's towering above the skyline of Ethiopia, and it will be one of the tallest buildings in the region. Some more stories around East Africa. Around Uganda has been posting a lot of things of late as well. And Uganda recently had a meeting with the son of Museveni had a meeting with Paul Kagame, and the borders are now fully open between Rwanda and Uganda, and they're saying how this is a wonderful achievement. Now people can move freely and trade and interact among the countries. And some very interesting ones. Mobius Motors in Kenya, for example, is showcasing some of his stuff on Twitter. The motors, the cars are actually manufactured and sold for the African roads. And the Twitter feed says it's one of the best in East Africa, and it's made in Africa for Africans. So hooray for Kenya pulling it off with the Mobius Motors, manufacturing cars right here on the continent. There's some other interesting tweets that are coming in. One is about Uganda. In the last 6 decades, Uganda's sugar cane production has increased from 1 million metric tons to 5 million metric tons, which makes Uganda the leading producer of sugar in East Africa, which is a very interesting fact. Some other interesting, and then some beautiful sites that we're seeing, Khartoum city in Sudan. We're also seeing some beautiful sites of Burundi. And a quote from EAC Youth Ambassadors Platform. The tweet says, "Few tips about East Africa Community Youth Ambassadors Platform." The platform was launched in September 2013 to serve as a forum for current and alumni ambassadors and representatives of the EAC clubs that they form in universities at the national level. Hashtag We Move It, hashtag EAC Youth, which is something very interesting that is happening in East Africa a lot. It's also happening in the universities where they do a lot of conversations, a lot of congregations around East Africa community and its integration. I think in ECOWAS we're doing things like that as well, where the youth are meeting together, but it looks like East Africa has been leading on this in a way that probably West Africa can learn from as well. Some more tweets coming in. Celebrated American TV host Ellen DeGeneres' Gorilla Conservation Center has officially opened in Rwanda. The center is set to protect critically endangered mountain gorillas in Rwanda. So that's some good news. Rwanda being a conservation capital right now in the region and in the world, helping gorillas also find a safe place to develop their families. And finally, something from Interpol. The East Africa Community Project team has carried out a technical assessment, engagement and coordination visit to help strengthen policing capabilities in Burundi. The mission included a visit to sites mapped for an extension of I-24/7, our secure communication system, which is good to hear. Burundi has been in the news for the right reasons. Burundi just became a member of APRM. Burundi also became a member of East Africa Community about 2 weeks ago. So Burundi, a country that has largely been seen as part of Central Africa for a long time, is actually now a member of East Africa Community, making the East Africa Community about 7 countries now. So that's Rwanda, Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania, South Sudan, DRC, and Burundi. So the East Africa Community is expanding, and what that means is that there's going to be a lot of, with AfCFTA here as well, there's going to be more developments in the region because each country brings their own comparative advantage. With Rwanda being the cleanest capital in the city, Kenya with its M-Pesa and its inclusion, financial inclusion, Uganda with its tourism, and so on. Every country, each country has its own comparative, making East Africa region a very interesting region to look out for. Compounded by the fact that last year what we saw with the Lapset, with the Lamu Port, South Sudan and Ethiopia coming onto stream, linking Ethiopia, Kenya and South Sudan together, which will eventually connect to West Africa, to Dakar. Some very, very interesting dynamics are taking place, which is some of them are being led by East Africa, even if they missed the chance of hosting AfCFTA Secretariat. I think they're really, punching above their weight to say that, look, we are still doing big things, infrastructure, trade corridors and so on. So take notice of us. And some of us really are taking notice of them. We'll continue to be giving you more updates on East Africa in our subsequent editions. Thank you. We're going to take a quick break, then we'll zoom into the discussion with our guest, Zupork. We'll be right back. All right.
There's no break.
No break. Welcome back from the break, and nice to have you here, Zupork.
Yes.
It's important always in the introduction for us to hear a little bit about who you are, not just the fact that you work at an institution that is known or not known, whatever. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then you can tell us a little about CDD. Then we'll jump into the concrete conversation.
Okay. I'm Mavis Zupork. Dorming.
Okay.
And I come from Upper East.
Okay.
And I actually grew up there.
Okay.
Around the region.
Okay.
But currently my family is in both family and that's Northern region and Upper East, and I am here.
Okay.
Yes, and I'm here working with CDD Ghana.
Okay.
As a research analyst.
Okay.
And when it comes to the Afrobarometer network, I double as the national investigator within CDD for Ghana surveys, Afrobarometer surveys.
Okay.
Yeah. For CDD, to come to CDD is a think tank, and we do a lot of work around political and democratic governance, and that's what most people seem to know us for. Yes. But we do a lot more. We do work around economic and corporate governance. We do a lot of work around social inclusion, and we do a lot of work around peace, justice, and security as well. So yeah, and we do a lot of work around civil society networking and collaborations and all that across Ghana and other countries, right? So, but most people seem to know about our democratic governance.
Which is interesting, because that's why the report, when you issued the invitation for some of us to come and take a look at the launch of the report, we were quite surprised, because CDD rarely works on issues around SMEs. It's because SMEs is more the preserve of the private sector, and so on. So we're like, okay, this is not really governance. However, the link there was the access to justice. So please tell us a little bit about it. What motivated GIZ and CDD to say, let's look at SMEs and their access to justice?
Right. So. Like I mentioned before, CDD do work around justice, peace and security, and in that we look at access to justice, and even also you look at legal obligations, both as a citizen and as the government to the citizens. And we also look at rule of law, and GIZ too, as part of their rule of law and justice unit, looking at access to justice across the regional level, access to justice, and equally they are interested in MSMEs. And for CDD, when you look at economic governance, then that includes the private sector, the growth of the private sector, and also government relationship with such private sector in terms of how promoting their growth, policies to promote growth, and also regulatory policies to such sectors. So in that context of it, and in the context of us doing justice, yes, so it kind of falls within the things that we do. And particularly when we, in 2020 with COVID, with a lot of discussion on the African free trade coming up, and all the business environment, when we're looking at it, then the issue of, there have been a lot of studies on the ecosystem, but then most studies didn't really look at the legal obligations and then also access to justice. So we decided that we would look at that, the ecosystem around that, instead of doing just business, environment and business challenges, but what are the ecosystem around legal obligations and access to justice. So we wanted to look at the regulatory regimes, the taxations, and then also access to justice, be it the formal system or the informal system. Yes.
But so in a nutshell, can you tell us whether the access to justice was met your expectations? Were you surprised by the findings of the report? I'm asking that question without necessarily asking about the findings, because there are a lot of the findings, but the findings clearly, would you say that they made you miserable? That there's a lot of work that needs to be done?
Yes, the findings did make us miserable.
Yeah.
In that we were also interested in the woman dimension of it, and you know, with MSMEs in Ghana, really they contribute a lot to our economy in terms of job creation as well as GDP. So and with we come in a global world, and then free trade, African continental free trade and all that, that means that MSMEs must be competitive enough to take advantage of such opportunities that are availing themselves. And unfortunately, the findings didn't seem to situate our MSMEs, as particularly the smaller businesses, in that capacity. If you look at in terms of growth, then the MSMEs do not really grow. They may change their product line and maybe increase the product that they are dealing with. But in terms of growth, in terms of employing more people, or even opening more branches, or serving people beyond their operating area that people come to serve, for instance, me being in Accra and expand enough that I provide whether a virtual business or actually a branch in Kumasi, we don't seem to grow in that perspective. The shop may increase, widen a bit, but we don't seem to grow. We don't seem to grow.
And is it a question of money, credits, loans, or is it, and I use this word advisedly, is it that there's a predatory system that is not making MSMEs grow?
When we looked at access to money, finances, most of these small businesses actually fund their own operations, but they also complain about access to loans. And in their complaint, it's more of collateral, time it takes to get even a loan approved, and how much you can actually get from the banks become a deterrent for them, and so they don't even have access to loans in order to grow their businesses.
The banks are already charging huge interest rates.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So they don't really have in terms of that. They don't really have. There's also another twist to it in terms of, do they even have the capacity, particularly when you talk about collateral. Are you keeping a good record system where a bank can use that to say, okay, I'm a bit secured because I know what you do day to day and I can give you a loan? You find out that they don't have the capacity to manage for business management. They don't have the capacity to keep proper record. So it's an issue of they having the capacity as well as access to finance. Yeah.
And what would you say is accounting for this? Is it that the whole system, the regulatory system, is not conducive? How come it's such a miserable outlook?
Well, in terms of the regulatory systems, if you look at the systems that really govern our MSMEs in Ghana, so you talk of the business registration system and you talk of operating permit within the district that you work at, and the various like Food and Drug Board, Standard Board, and all that, then you have the GRA tax regime as well. In terms of awareness of these systems being in place, they know them. A lot of people tend to actually register their businesses. But you see, these services are such that they don't give complementary services. So I go to register my business at the assembly, my operating permit at the assembly. But even though some assemblies may give a lot of capacities to businesses because they have the business advisory units, most MSMEs do not know of these advisory units to even go to and access such advisory services. When we come to the Registrar General, even though they register business, what are the complementary services? So it's an issue of the complementary services, because these business owners really do not are not so, especially the small ones, do not are not highly educated that might, that you say that even they may get curious to read and learn for themselves, but it's a skill that the local authority, the regulatory authority, and then even banks need to think around how to equip MSMEs around these things, and not just think about giving financial services or GRA taking your tax money from them, VAT, income tax from them, but also how would they manage the business to be successful in order for you to also be able to tax.
So basically you have the situation where GRA, Ghana Revenue Authority, is happy to take in money that is brought in from registration of businesses, okay? But it doesn't seem to create an environment with other agencies that is conducive for the SMEs to do their business.
Yes, so when you talk of the GRA, which is the Revenue Authority here, yes, they do educate businesses around the tax regimes, but even that, businesses are a bit confused around income tax, VAT, and which one I'm actually paying. So when they pay this, they don't pay that. Besides that, they get confused between their own and the tolls that the assembly take. So, and there's so much D-link. They seems to be operating separately. But if the issue is, if these units operated as one, it would have made it easier, or if there was a linkage, even with Ghana Standard Board and all that, it would have made it easier for a small business to go through one system, or if you have a stop shop, to make it easy for them, and with a complementary service of teaching you how to grow your business and keep your record good, so that you can get access to.
From the picture that you're painting, and given that we have the context of the African Continental Free Trade Area, it certainly does not look good, because it means that the SMEs are going to be in a very difficult position to even position themselves to access markets, and do business in a way that they can use that to access different markets.
Indeed, yes. How
does the situation in Ghana compare with other countries? I know from the report that the stuff you sent out, that you are thinking of doing it in other countries, which would be very useful, because then we could really, put a big fat F on Ghana to make sure that they change, because they are home to the AfCFTA Secretariat. Yes. How does it compare with other countries from your report?
Well, so like I said, we have not yet done it in other countries, but if you look at in terms of the ecosystem, and just particularly around businesses' capacity, particularly West Africa, I don't think the story is much different. But when it comes to access to justice, really, we haven't yet done that through into the other countries, so I can't say much about that. But even if you take Ghana, for instance, the MSMEs would not actually go to the formal system to access justice in terms of disputes. They would rather go to family members, the traditional authority, than they would go to court or a police in the case of a dispute. And most of them do talk about they do not trust the system processes, and equally the time wasted in using formal systems make it difficult for them to want to go to them first.
So, so it means that apart from the fact that there's a lot of work to do, what, in your view, are some of the things that can be quickly done to make sure that the picture has changed? Is there more information that SMEs need from these regulatory agencies? What exactly do they, in the very short term, do they need to start changing the record?
Yes, so it's information, it is capacity, it is when you look at the regulatory system, it's capacity and information, and also a one-stop shop for most of these legal obligations that small businesses have to adhere to, so that they don't have to go from one office to another just to access that, which the offices are not in the same area. It is also equipping the market associations. You know, some of these things we can actually pass through the market associations to get to the women, and then even the men, the small businesses. We can train market associations in order to train businesses in terms of business strategy, management, and bookkeeping. We can train them on alternative conflict resolution, so that small conflicts, disputes can easily be sent there. And also in terms of the legal system and even the tax system is an issue of transparency around that people understand the processes and the transparency. And also for me particularly is also can we think as Ghana around a kind of legal aid system for small businesses, because legal aid system is open to an individual, but not, if I'm coming to you as an individual is different, but I can't bring my business dispute. Yeah, so can we look at the one man, one woman who may have a dispute, a business dispute, and would need help? Yes. And
so
then
legal aid, okay.
And then also the small courts, the district courts, should be equipped to be able to handle processing fast, because if I feel that it take a lot of time, and that is because they are not so equipped, computerized so much. If they have all the necessary equipment, perhaps they can, the time spent just to get a resolution would be lessened, and more people will be interested.
It seems like a long shot, but when you juxtapose this or extrapolate it to the continental level of AfCFTA, AfCFTA is now beginning to set up, the AfCFTA Secretary beginning to set up the dispute settlement unit as well. And it spent quite some time working on it, because they realized that by all means, since there are things around tariffs and discussions around which countries bringing down their rates and so on, so as to access markets, there are going to be disputes, and those disputes need a dispute settlement body or unit to discuss. So it may seem very trivial, but clearly conflict resolution and all these things, you know, at the end of the day, it's all part of Agenda 2063.
Yes.
A peaceful and secure Africa.
Yes.
Aspiration 4.
Yes.
It isn't just about silencing the guns. It's also about having peace of mind as a business to work and do your work, knowing that there are regulatory agencies that can support you, that can help you, because access to the courts as well is a headache, but you need to be able to know that as a business, if you have a challenge and you go to the courts, the court will support you or will rule against you or in your favor because something is not right, and that adds to the peace that you need around your business as well. So access to justice that you really spearheaded is very interesting. It's very important for us on the program, because you know, it is Martin Luther King who said that the absence of conflict, you know, peace is not the absence of conflict, but the presence of justice. Yes. So clearly, we can't just say that because you've set up a business, go ahead and just set up your business on your own. You need support. And that support, there should be some regulatory and conducive environment that will help make your business grow. Your report clearly states that the picture is bleak. We are hoping that you'll be able to get money to do other country reports, so that, you know, a compare and contrast will allow for maybe this to be scaled up at the continental level, where we can then say that, well, SMEs in Ghana are not being treated well, but maybe in Kenya they are better treated, in South Africa they are better treated. So what lessons from each of these countries can be brought to bear for Ghana? And the thing though is that it's not as if Ghana doesn't have capacity or cannot do things correctly. So how come, what is in your view, what is stopping GRA and these agencies from doing the right thing? Is it that they're not interested in people owning business as well?
I think that they do, and we have that. In fact, Ghana, we always seem to have the systems well set up in place. So It's usually just the issue of, should I say, operational issues. So who knows about it? What are the procedures? So you would even notice that businesses will, small businesses will start the registration process, for instance, with the Registrar General, but will pause at a point.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, for instance, Registrar General, for instance, is not even, I think it's not even in every region. So you have to, you know,
time to come to Accra.
Not just Accra. I mean, like across the country. It's not. It's not like it's in every district, so that I can just easily go registering my business. So it's also an issue of decentralization with support systems, because these various regulatory bodies actually have their client service units, but most people do not even know about these client service units to go and actually access for such help. So that is the thing. It's about making the businesses, or even, let me not limit it to businesses, but everybody, because I'm a potential businesswoman. So I should know if I have a dream of going into business, what I should do. And if you go to Registrar General website, yes, you get a lot of information, and they have even digitized their services. But what of the average woman or man who cannot read and write, you know? Yeah. So we have to figure out how to really get to them. So it's good to work so closely with the Market Association women or men, because they even complain that there are a lot of initiatives that these regulatory bodies, even including the government, come to do in the market without proper consultation with them. So it's really good. Yes, we understand the limitations, but it's also good to use the resources available to you, and that is the market associations. They have various, they have various associations. And where they don't have associations, I think that the local assembly should try to group them into associations. It will even help with fee fixing in the district level. So
I like the point you make about market associations. As we begin to wind down the program, it's good for us to begin looking at solutions. So in your view, what are some of the hard and fast solutions that need to happen? I've already asked about the short term, which you have spoken to, but overall, what do you think needs to be done to scale up this report? Because I'm sure you don't want this report to be gathering dust.
No, of course.
What do you need to happen with this report to make sure that it gains traction?
All right. So this report, we do hope that doesn't just remain in Ghana, as I mentioned earlier, and also for policy makers and the various regulatory systems to really look into this report and use it. Luckily, last year we were able to have a dissemination, which we were invited, and we got a good number of the regulators there, and they have copies of the report, and they were excited, or should I say the findings were revealing to them, and we would follow up and see, we would like to see some of the negative findings, adverse findings, being changed into positive stories. That is what we would like to see, not that it will gather dust in their various offices. And also, like individuals, NGOs and CSOs who are actually really into business development should really reach out to help these small businesses, because they need to be competitive enough to take advantage of opportunities, and also create generational wealth enough to employ more people, and also for other generations to come.
So how central is the media in this conversation?
Very, very. Media, a lot of us use the media as a medium to reach the unreachable. Even in the rural area, people would tune into radio. So it would be good to break not just this report, but to break the various regulatory systems into smaller bite pieces and create a program around that and educate even the market woman who is sitting in the market whilst listening. Even if the person is listening to a music program, but you are the presenter, you chip in a bit of education around these issues, that would really be great.
Super. So your parting comments to encourage all the SMEs out there, whom many of you need to be encouraged to do to continue setting up businesses, what would you tell them?
Well, there's hope. There's hope. All is not lost. We know our challenges is about getting the right solutions to them or working within what we have. So it's accessing what is available for us within the regulatory systems, understanding the various tax regimes so that we should take them in small bites and not so much that we get so overwhelmed over it. And also we should not look within just our neighborhood but also look into expanding to other places. We should even look at virtual market. How do I get my services even though I am in Accra? How do I provide services to somebody in Upper East, Northern Region or Upper West? Yeah.
Fantastic. So, Mavis, Zupork, Tommy, thank you so very much for taking time out of your busy schedule to speak with us. I hope that we can schedule another interview where you'll be giving us better news and that you'll be also telling us that there's going to be other countries that will be featured in the report, because it's clearly a very important report that we don't want it to die. We hope that we can do some good work in unpacking it for constituencies, especially women who want to access business, because clearly the challenges for women are also very different from the challenges for men.
Exactly.
So they're gender disaggregated or gender aggregated issues that need to be unpacked going forward as well.
Yeah.
So thank you very much, and we hope to speak to you definitely another time.
Thank you.
Thank you for making time.
Thank you for having me.
For all those who were watching us, as always, you know that you can follow AAU TV Official on Instagram and at _AAU67 on Twitter. If you're stuck, you can always look for AAU online, whether Facebook or Twitter, and look for Association of African Universities on Facebook as well. My name is Bensah Jr., your regular host for Agenda 2063 TV show. We are the only show on Ghana, in Ghana, the region, the continent, telling you authentic stories about Africa's integration. We'll continue to do so. Also streamline Agenda 2063. Free African citizen, that we can get the Africa we want. It is right here, it is here to stay, and it's streaming right in your homes every single week. We hope to see you next time. Find me at Bensah on Twitter, and let's have a conversation on what other programs you'd also like to see. Hope to speak to you next time. Have a great day. Goodbye.